Hey guys, Zazubaar here, and today I'm here to do another movie review of a movie that's not even kind of new. No, today we're going to be taking a look at a movie that I should be reviewing on ZMMR if I was still doing that show, which I am, but it's going to be a while before I bring it back. So, I would typically be reviewing this movie on that show, but since I'm not bringing it back for a while, I wanted to review it now, and review it without a script, because I was watching it for the first time yesterday, and it turned out I had a lot to say about it as a monster movie. So let's take a look at it now. I didn't write a script for this only because I'm knee deep in my Godzilla-thon right now, and I'm really not into writing scripts that aren't Godzilla movies because it takes a lot out of me to review. I'm writing basically. Sorry, my cats are fighting. I'm basically writing one review per day for those Godzilla movies, so it's kind of taking a lot out of me. So I'm going to do this off the cuff and try to review it as best as I can without a script. I don't like reviewing things without a script, but I'm going to try my very best. Alright. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 1954 monster movie, The Snow Creature. Yeah, when I first saw the little title pop up on YouTube movies called The Snow Creature, I was intrigued because I'm a very much so a fan of 50s black and white horror movies. We're basically all black and white horror movies, so I was intrigued to say the least. But then also compounding my interest was the fact that it was about the abominable snowman / Yeti, which is a legend that I'm very interested in, since it's akin to the whole Sasquatch legend, which, you know, I do a whole show on that, so with Adam. So this definitely piqued my interest. But more than that, this movie came out in 1954, whereas one of my favorite horror movies of all time is 1957's The Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas, which is a Hammer movie starring Peter Cushing. That's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I think it's brilliant. It's actually scary, and it's one of the greatest. It's one of the greats. So when I saw this movie, I was deeply intrigued, seeing that there was actually an Abominable Snowman movie made before that. Which apparently there was a whole lot of them that were made after this movie came out. So apparently this was the first one, though, and that there was a whole lot of them, including Hammer's movie after this. So I wanted to check this out and see how it was. So I watched it for the first time yesterday. And here's what I thought about it. It's not bad, but it's almost like this. There was a very particular formula for monster movies in the 50s. And it was followed by basically every monster movie that came out, except for a few. Like, you know, we had the original Gojira in 54, you know, those kind of movies. But there were exceptions that didn't follow this formula. And the formula basically went like this. There's mystery surrounding some kind of creature that starts out, and it's people or places are mysteriously disappearing or being destroyed. Then there's a scientific expedition who either is looking for the creature, not thinking it exists, or is simply trying to discover what's causing the strange phenomena. Following this, the monster is revealed. It kills some more people out in the open. It's captured, or it's startled into attacking an urban environment like a city. Or it's of course captured and brought to an urban environment, which you saw in King Kong, and we also see in this film. It attacks the urban environment, wreaks havoc, and then is finally brought down by the authority, the police / the military / the scientist. And it's killed, and then we have a happy ending. 1957's The Abominable Snowman did not follow this formula at all. In fact, it's a completely different scenario, but I do want to review that movie on ZMMR in detail soon. Like, as soon as I bring back the show, I'm going to be reviewing Alien, and then I might just jump on to reviewing Abominable Snowman, because I really want to get it out there, because I freaking love that movie. But The Snow Creature starts out very similar to Hammer's movie, which kind of made me raise an eyebrow. I was thinking, did Hammer rip someone off? So I was very excited. I thought this was going to be a good movie. But very quickly it dissolves into that formula of monsters mysterious, monster attacks, monsters captured, and then goes to a city and wreaks havoc. That's basically the formula. And that's not necessarily a problem. I'm a big fan of that formula again, but here's the big problem with that. This is not just any old made-up a monster to attack people. This is an actual, supposedly existing creature. With supposedly existing legends, lore, and stories about them. Early on, the Yeti, I think we're led to believe that there's a couple of Yetis in this movie, but there's only one that is really the focal point, so, or technically the main monster. So I'll just say there's one Yeti just because that's the one that we focus on. We do see more than one, but it's only in one scene. By the way, if you have any interest in seeing this movie, definitely don't watch this review because I'm going to spoil the crap out of it. But it is on YouTube for free, so I'll put a link to it in the description. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm stuttering so bad today. It's really early in the morning, and I just wanted to get this review out. So let's get into it. So one of my big problems is that the Yeti just acts like a typical monster. It doesn't act like a supposed Yeti. It goes around doing what you'd expect a monster to do. It goes around attacking people. And it's not like it's even eating them, it's just attacking them because that's what it's expected to do. In one of the opening scenes, we see it carry off a Tibetan woman, and then we never hear from her again. Are we led to believe that it killed her, or what? We're not told. The Yeti just acts like a typical monster. It attacks the scientific expedition. It growls menacingly, it attacks from the darkness. A typical monster would behave like this, and I have a problem with that because this is supposedly a real creature. I'm not going to say I know for sure because I don't, but if you're doing a movie based on an actual legend, I think you should make a strong effort to follow that legend and characterize that monster accordingly. Like, again, Hammer's movie did that. But this movie completely fails at that. Now, perhaps I'm being too hard on it since this is the first of many Abominable Snowman movies, and maybe they just get more accurate as we go along. But, still, it's eyebrow-raising, and it impairs my enjoyment of it. And on top of that, it's just not as much... It's harder for me to enjoy it when I know that this thing might be real and it's acting like a typical movie monster. It might have been more enjoyable if it was a made-up monster. Anyway, so moving on to one of my other problems with the movie is that there's many conflicts raised in the movie that are either completely forgotten about or don't go anywhere interesting. First things first, I'll give a brief plot synopsis since I want you guys to kind of understand where I'm going to go with this conflict complaint. The movie is about a botanical expedition led by a Dr. Parrish, going into the Himalayas to see what kind of plant life can survive up there. We're not told why he's doing this, just that he's doing this. Of course, it's just a contrivance to get a scientist up there, because the Yeti's up there. He takes along a bunch of Sherpa guys, but only one that can speak English. His name is Subra. Subra leaves and with the expedition, and we see him bid farewell to his wife, and they have a very tender scene before they go off. And then while they're up in the mountains, going about their business, checking the plant life, making camp, hiking, we see Subra's wife leaving their house, and she's quickly attacked by a Yeti. And the Yeti it kidnaps her in a King Kong fashion, and it carries her off somewhere. We don't see where ever. We just know that it carries her off somewhere and does something with her. Subaru is informed about this by his brother, who climbs the mountain to go tell him that his wife has been taken by the Yeti. And Subaru wants to go looking for the Yeti and go hunting it. However, the scientists don't believe in the Yeti, so they think he's just nuts and say that he better stay with the camp. And forget about his Yeti obsession. I'll get back to this in a minute. Subaru, wanting to hunt the Yeti, causes a mutiny of the Sherpas against the scientists. There's only 2 English scientists, so they're kind of outnumbered, and they cause a mutiny. And now Subaru's leading the Sherpas and these Englishmen to go look for the Yeti. They're no longer looking for the plants. Now they've kidnapped the scientists to help them find the Yeti and hunt him down so they can save Subaru's wife, supposedly. Throughout this, the scientists are trying to get access to a radio so they can contact the Shikar police, which is the town they embarked from to go on their journey, and inform them that there's been a mutiny. So, after many days and nights of walking around and just being attacked by the Yeti, a couple of Sherpas being killed, and then finally an avalanche being caused by the Yeti, locking them in a cave, which also happens to be the Yeti's home. They find the Yeti. Of course, they find the Yeti's den. We never get word of what happened to oh my god, I just completely forgot the guy's name. Subaru's wife. All of a sudden, they just start attacking the Yeti. They capture it and they bring it back. There's a fight going on throughout this about whether or not to kill the Yeti. Subaru wants it dead because it kidnapped his wife, and also we're implied that it led to her death, but we're not told that. Basically, there's just a fight in the cave between the Yeti and the scientists and Sherpas. Many of the Sherpas die, and then the Yeti's captured. And but dialogue by Subaru suggests that his wife died. The scientists grab a gun and say that unless you help us bring the Yeti back, we're gonna kill you. So, under threat of gunpoint, the Sherpas help the scientists carry the Yeti back to civilization, continuously butting it with the butt of a gun to keep it unconscious, so that way they can bring it back and without it harming them. Which it does do in one case. They stop the camp for the night, and it does attempt to kill one of the Sherpas. But they knock it out again. Once they get back to Shikar, the Sherpas are they're incarcerated for mutiny. And then of course the scientists return back to civilization. Where they bring the Yeti, of course, and that causes a big media hysteria about this thing actually exists. They bring it back to Los Angeles, and they have it in a customs warehouse, awaiting to be given the clearance to bring it into the country. But once in there, they leave it in there for too long, and the creature manages to escape. And then, of course, it goes on a rampage through LA, continuing its strange pining for human women, killing some, scaring the crap out of others. It's kind of inconsistent. Basically, this all leads to a confrontation in the sewers between the creature and the policeman and one of the scientists, which ends in the creature being caught in a net and the policeman gunning it down. Creature's dead. We have a happy ending. The end. So, what's my problem with the conflicts in the movie? Well, there's a couple. The first and foremost, and the one that I found the most interesting, was Subaru wanting to hunt the Yeti after it kidnaps his wife. Now, here's my problem with this. It's an interesting conflict, but it doesn't have to be. Because, Subaru should just have to say to these scientists, look, this thing kidnapped my wife, I have to leave, you can continue on your expedition, and I have to go save my wife. Now, That's what he should have said. He doesn't say that. He basically says, we have to take the entire expedition and go look for it. Well, no you don't, because this has nothing to do with these scientists. Just go leave and go find your wife. You don't have to be this much of a jerk about it and try to, commandeer their entire expedition. But the scientists aren't off the hook either, because they are your typical greedy scientists, yet they're supposed to be our main characters. I don't find anyone sympathetic who is as greedy as saying, this expedition costs millions of dollars, forget about your wife, and let's just keep going and looking for plants. That is one of the most jerkish kind of lines I've ever heard, yet we're not even supposed to question whether or not we like these guys as our main characters. It's incredibly stupid, and don't worry, Super's not sympathetic either, since once he commandeers the expedition, he acts like a total jerk about it, and keeps laughing at them, then, oh, such silly white men, we have kidnapped you. Acting like a total jerk that they've commandeered the entire expedition. Eating all their food, acting like kings while they treat the scientists like dirt. This is really dumb. It's kind of racist, since, again, we're automatically supposed to sympathize with the white man here, and even they're acting like jerks. So, I don't care about any of these characters, I don't like any of them, so I don't care what happens, and I completely lose interest in the movie. Anyway, so, that's one problematic conflict, but then there's another one. The conflict over whether or not to kill or bring back the Yeti. Again, we're supposed to just automatically go with the white man on this one. Subaru's conflict is completely forgotten by about midway through the movie. The Yeti is just simply, it's basically just captured without even considering that maybe it should be killed for what it did to Subaru. Which of course, the white man's point will be, or I should stop saying that. The scientist's point will be completely moot later. Anyway. So Subaru's conflict is completely forgotten. The scientists simply just capture the Yeti, bring it back. And there's no mention of his wife, which seems to me to be lazy writing. Also later, the scientists kill the Yeti anyway. Even when they have the chance to recapture it, they just kill it. That's it. No questions. Wow. That's some lazy writing. So, final conflict I wanted to bring up, that's problematic for me, is the conflict between, these two, white scientists. Or actually, one of them's not even really a scientist, he's a science news reporter, who's, being the photographer for this one guy's expedition looking for the Himalaya plants. When they get back, he writes a story about the Yeti, being found, but he doesn't call it a Yeti, he calls it a snowman. And this is actually my favorite, idea in the movie. When they get back, the customs officer tells the scientist that he can't bring the Yeti in because they don't know if they have to make an immigration file for it. Like if it needs a green card, or a visa. Because in the article, before the scientists even arrived with the creature, it's called a snowman, implying that it's human. Of course, the scientist argues that it's an animal, and there's an interesting argument brought up that maybe there's an argument of whether or not it's man or beast. This idea is completely forgotten very quickly. As soon as the thing escapes, it's just an animal. They just want to hunt it down. No mention of that conflict anymore. It's a fascinating conflict, and as soon as the thing escapes, it's just an animal that needs to be put down. Wow. That's also very lazy writing. Basically, my problem with this movie is that it starts out with several interesting premises, I don't know. Many interesting I can't say that. What's the plural of premise? Help me, goddammit! No. Having a mental breakdown here. So there's many interesting ideas brought up at the film's start, but they're all either completely forgotten or just devolve into bad writing very quickly. And it ultimately turns into a very cliched Monster in the Loose story, ripping off King Kong. And that was my problem with it. Halfway through, I was bored as hell. I've seen this story told many times. Of course, the original King Kong, the same year we had them. Of course, we had the original Gojira, even though that didn't really follow this formula. The previous year, we had the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which also followed this formula. And then, of course, a couple years later, we would have the much superior Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas, which I can't wait to watch again for my ZMR of it. Anyway, so, yeah, this movie is not that good. It quickly devolves into a typical monster movie, and if you're a fan of those, I think it's worth checking out for maybe seeing another one that's maybe a little early, before that formula really got going crazy. And that's also might just be worth checking out if you're interested in the Yeti phenomena and seeing the first movie that I'm aware of that features the Yeti as the central monster or point of conflict. So it's worth checking out for that. But the last thing I want to talk about before I go and before I rate this movie is that okay, first of all, let me just say a plus for it. The movie is beautiful. The black and white perfectly complements the material. The film looks great in terms of cinematography and settings, and especially the Himalayas stuff. The LA stuff is just whatever. But the stuff in the Himalayas is beautiful. It's not nearly as atmospheric as 57, the Hammer film, but this movie's also very effective at creating a very effective atmosphere for the Himalayas. I wouldn't call it scary, but I'd call it effective at making this look like the real Himalayas. And all that cinematography is beautiful. The movie's very well shot overall, too. It's just that there's nothing else really going for it, except for the fact that it's shot really well. It seems like the director really wanted to shoot a great monster movie, but didn't have the script or the material or the actors to work with. He just seemed like he had mediocre crap and just went out and shot it like it was a great movie. So I guess you can give him props for that. The movie looks great, but he tried his very best, but he just didn't have anything to work with. And I think the biggest production person we can criticize here is the writer. He just did not write enough solid material for this script. Again, ideas are they either quickly devolve or just completely dropped, and none of the characters are really likable or interesting. Most of them aren't that memorable. So I think we can mainly criticize the writer, because the director really shoots this very well. He seems to definitely be intrigued by the Yeti and intrigued by the Himalayas, so he shoots it very well. Now on to the effects. One of the biggest pluses about Hammer's film, The Abominable Snowman in the Himalayas, is that you don't actually see the Yetis, or at least you don't see them in full form at all. You see bits and pieces of them, but that's it. You never see one in full form. You see footprints, you see arms, you see eyes, you see shadows, you see arms. I think I said arms already, but whatever. You see arms more than once. With this film, you never get a really clear look at it, but you see it in full form way too much. Again, props off to the director. He keeps it engulfed in shadow most of the time, where you can't see the face or really any distinguishing details. But you see the thing way too much, and the effects are not good at all. The makeup makes the thing look like a guy wearing fur, with a black painted face. It's not good at all. And again, props off to the director. He tried to keep it in shadow as much as he could, but he just shouldn't have shown it that much, if at all. Because the effects aren't good enough where I can suspend disbelief to say that, oh yeah, that's a Yeti. And being on screen too much, it's not scary, and it doesn't create any amount of tenseness. You feel like you always know where it is because you see it on screen so much. There's no mystery surrounding the creature at all. It's just a monster. With no mystique or intrigue surrounding it. It's just a monster to kill people. With all that said, the movie again isn't terrible, but it's not good either. If you're interested in the Legend of the Yeti or in this period's monster movies, I do recommend you check it out for that. But overall, it's not a solid piece. If you can't really find any good reason to see it besides the two I mentioned, then you can avoid it. But for those of you who are intrigued, the link for the movie is in the description. It's also in my favorites, so go check it out there. I'm going to give the Snow Creature I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Not terrible, but not good. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. And again, be ready for my Godzilla-thon. It's coming in August. I'll see you all soon. Zazubaar out.